Live from the chicken wing capital of the world, Buffalo, New York. You're listening to the Child Care Bridge Podcast, your source for the best tips, tools, and tactics on how to market and grow your child care center, ensuring total domination. Total domination. This is the Child Care Bridge, and this is your host, Michael Tasner.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Child Care Bridge. Today's topic is all about content production. I've been getting a lot of questions as of late around what platforms to be publishing on, how much content, how to spice up and make content more interesting rather than simply posting about your child care center. Now, the disclaimer before I start to really get into the weeds is that the amount of content you are going to have to produce is going to be far greater than anything you could have imagined. And at least at this stage of the game, unless you have a very large marketing team or an agency like mine that's doing this for you, you're going to set yourself up to fail. So the content game over the last couple of years has shifted. It's shifted towards a game of how can I post and publish more often? So if I'm looking at LinkedIn as an example, I should be aiming to publish at minimum once a day, but my target would be 3 times a day. And when I'm saying posting, it's not simply going on there and writing a one-line post, but rather publishing content. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all of these are demanding more and more content. They want native content, meaning content that fits the platform that you're on. So you don't just take exactly what you do on Facebook and post it on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and all the other different platforms, but you make it native and you make it fit to that particular platform. All of these channels are requiring more and more and more, and that number is only going to continue to get larger. Now, the reason behind that is that we are in this game of grabbing attention. How much attention can we get? But the beautiful thing is all of those platforms that I had mentioned to you, they're completely free of charge. So when you tell me that, Michael, my number one source of leads or my number one source of new enrollments is word of mouth, this is essentially word of mouse, pun intended. So if I look at these different platforms and I start to laser in on, is there a platform or two that if I were in your shoes, based on all the results that I am currently getting for all the different childcare centers that we're managing the marketing for, would I laser focus? And this is a very difficult question to answer, and I'm going to tell you why. The reason that it's a difficult question to answer is that depending on your audience, depending on where you're located, depending on your tuition, some of these platforms are going to be better than others. So, for example, a lot of childcare centers have never thought that LinkedIn could be a good platform for anything other than hiring. LinkedIn is a great platform to get your word out, especially if you are aiming to bring in business people, career-minded people. And correct me if I'm wrong, one of the biggest reasons that people are enrolling at your center is because the husband and wife are both working. So LinkedIn is an interesting platform. And it's not to say that if your demographic is a little bit lower or you're in a west side of a particular city or a bad part of a city that they're not going to be on LinkedIn. The chances are much lower, but I need you to really get serious and really delve a little bit deeper into your current personas, the families that you currently have attending. And I want you to start to stalk some of them. Go and see what platforms they are currently on. This is a game of attention. You're trying to grab the attention as fast as possible and as much as possible from the platform or platforms that you're on. And the challenge with this attention game is that people are jumping. They might log in and spend 5 minutes on Facebook, then they jump over to Instagram. When they get to work, maybe they log on and they check and they scan some headlines on LinkedIn. Maybe on their lunch break, they're going through and watching funny videos on TikTok. Maybe in the evening when they're watching the news, they're also on Twitter, well, X, formerly Twitter, and they're grabbing content there. So they're no longer kind of platform agnostic to the point where, I'm only going to go here. They're really jumping from platform to platform to platform, and they're spreading their attention out into little micro moments. Little micro moment here, little micro moment there, micro moment there. This is what I call, when I wrote my first book, marketing in the moment. We need to be grabbing them in those micro moments on the platform that they are on at the time. Now, if this is sounding complex to you, unfortunately, it is. So unless you have an agency like mine or a big marketing team, you're going to set yourself up to fail in going through this particular process. But there is a little bit of a silver lining, and I will tell you what that silver lining is. You can start with one platform and go full guns blazing, like go all in on the platform and dominate that platform to the place where you're starting to get referrals, you're getting inbound messages, you're getting comments. A lot of stuff is starting to snowball. So your efforts start to pay off. You don't have to necessarily spread yourself so thin that you're putting a small amount of content on each platform because Michael says, I need to be on every platform. I would much rather you laser focus on one or two platforms and do them really, really well and post multiple times a day than spread yourself across 5, 6, 7, 8 different platforms. So for the centers that we are actively managing their content and their social media, we are seeing the best results from Facebook. That is the platform for most audiences, most of the centers that we work with. That is where the best results are coming from. That doesn't mean that's where the best engagement. It means where we are seeing the most amount of leads that are turning into enrollments, and that is continuing to kind of spiral. And the reason behind that is that most centers had a Facebook page, even though it may not have been great, for many, many years. So Facebook tends to be the place that I would start with first. The second platform is actually YouTube. And a lot of people say, well, what do you mean? YouTube? Like, are you joking me? I'm not joking at all. YouTube is owned by Google, the world's largest search engine. The amount of play that is continuing to move towards YouTube and YouTube Shorts, and when I say play, attention, is astronomical. Astronomical. So if I'm saying, well, you've got to put some content on Facebook a few times a day, and I'm suggesting that you really focus on YouTube, and in particular, obviously, a video strategy. That begs the question, what do I actually do? What type of content works? How do I get this done? How do I actually make this happen? And I'm going to publish a couple of different podcasts and videos around this exact topic, but I wanted to kind of give you the 10,000 foot overview of how does this actually work? But how do I get it to the place where instead of having to throw many, many thousands of dollars a month and or dozens, if not 30, 40, 50 hours a month, how can you get this to where you're producing content that is impactful, that matches your brand, and also helps you start to move that needle? And the secret sauce, the secret answer that I have been screaming from the rooftops for probably close to 20 years, possibly longer, is video. Everything that I want you to do for your content should start with video. Now think about that. Why would we want video rather than pictures, rather than text or audio? With video, if you start with video, the first thing that you can do is you can now post those videos to YouTube. From there, we can clip them up, and we'll talk about the content in just a minute, so hang with me. Clip them up, and you can make them shorter and post them as YouTube Shorts. Those YouTube Shorts could be slightly edited and changed a little bit and posted over at TikTok. That content could get transcribed, and now you have a Facebook post that you can have in written form and also a link over to a video. You can pull out audio and have audio snippets. There's a lot of different things that you can pull out of video that if you were to start with simply text, it's a lot harder. Now, I don't want to overcomplicate this first video, but there is a lot of technology out there, and it's getting better and better, that you can put in words and have an AI avatar speak those words for you. But I'm going to try and coach you and push you towards doing this yourself. And I'm going to give you one of my favorite ways to get these videos. So there are a lot of obvious videos that you can do. You can do frequently asked questions. You can interview parents. You can interview teachers. You as the owner can do some videos. Why did you start the center? What are the values? How are you different? All of that stuff. And I wouldn't say that that's bad content at all. That's the necessary content. That's good content for your website and social media fodder. But then what's going to happen is you're going to hit a roadblock and you're going to say, I don't know what to publish next. We've done all of our staff. I've done a bunch of videos. You've got a bunch of parent testimonials. What's next? My favorite way to move this needle is for you to actually start interviewing other businesses, other leaders in your community, other professionals. And what do I mean by that? One of the quickest ways to build a relationship is by inviting them on to have an interview with you, and then for you to actually promote them. So hear me out. You've got a childcare center and you're looking for more families that are like that. So the chances are pretty high that there are dance studios, gymnastic studios, martial arts, dojos, trampoline parks, pediatric dentist offices, other after-school programs if you don't offer that, putt-putt golf, arcades, theaters, all these places that have your target demographic. They already have it. So what if you were to invite the owner of that business, even if you're using a software tool like Zoom, to capture the videos and you interview them? Tell me about your let's say it's a trampoline park. Tell me about your trampoline park. How did you start it? Why did you start it? What are some of the fun things about it? And you just let them talk. And what ends up happening is you become a little bit more of the authority because you're interviewing these people on the other side. You're interviewing them. They're coming on your quote unquote show. And I don't want you to get so in the weeds on the logistics of like, this sounds complicated, because you're going to remember a concept that I've talked about in previous episodes around who, not how. One of the biggest lessons that I've ever learned in business is this concept of who, not how, and investing in whos. So I always used to try and figure out, well, what's the end? Like, how do I figure this out? I want to do direct mail marketing. How do I figure it out? And I would research and I'd buy books and courses. Why wouldn't I have just hired an expert in that particular topic and paid them to do it? It would have gotten done faster, and then I could have invested my time in things that were more valuable to help move the business forward. So who, not how. So you're not going to be the one that's producing all of this. You're going to be showing up and interviewing somebody on the other side. So what ends up happening with this strategy is that you start to build a list of people that you could also potentially execute a Dream 100 relationship. So if you haven't listened to my episode on the Dream 100, please listen to that one, because it's all about building relationships with people that already have your target audience on them. They already have it. Trampoline Park already has families coming into their facility each and every day. So what ends up happening for you is you interview them on something like Zoom. There's a dozen other tools, but let's say Zoom. And an agency like mine chops all this stuff up. And you now have content for your social media, YouTube, all these other places. And what you're doing is you are indirectly kind of endorsing that business, but you're also then letting them know, hey, your episode's going to air on Friday at noon. Here are the links. I'd love you to share it with your audience. And now all those other magical things happen. So what ends up happening for you is after you get through that generic content that everyone needs, the FAQs, that why your center is better and different and where you're located and your teachers' profiles and yours and all that, it is very good content. But that runs out depending on how fast you get it done. Now you can start to interview these different businesses that are similar to yours by way of the demographic. You're marketing to parents. And you can invite them on your show. Let's say it's once a week or every other week. And it doesn't have to be long. You can do a 20 or 30-minute interview. And you start to produce that content. That goes to Facebook, to YouTube, and all these other platforms. And you get to actually have a little bit of fun, but also kill like 5 birds with one stone. You're building relationships with other people that could refer people to your center. That's going to result in more opportunities for you. You're producing video content for video platforms. You're then producing written content that can get transcribed. If you take it a step further, you end up turning this into a podcast like I'm doing here. And you grow your authority, your business authority. You are kind of the local expert then in your area because you are inviting and managing all these different relationships. And then it becomes game over in a good way. You start getting people asking to come on your show. You start to get sponsors, and all of this gets done from you having to work roughly an hour a week at this particular strategy. You show up, you have a great interview, and then someone else gets all of the other pieces done for you. That, to me, it answers that question, and it starts to solve the what next. Now, you could post lots of really good content for your parents, and the content that we tend to publish is helpful articles, activities, seasonality things, healthy recipes, all those different things. That's all great content. But you have to make sure that you are actively doing it each and every day. If you pivot and you say, well, Michael, I want to test out this content strategy you just talked about and start to interview people, you're getting so much more from your time. You can still publish helpful recipes and articles and things to do and all that good stuff. But if you take it that step further and now you have this show, for example, it becomes game over in a good way. That is how you start to really produce more and more content. So I wanted to give you the 10,000 foot view. I wanted to give you the framework to my content strategy because I wanted you to kind of marinate on it a little bit. So when you start to dot those I's, cross those T's, and you start to figure out, well, geez, this could work. I show up, I ask some questions, and then I magically get all this content. And then I might end up getting some referral relationships that say, oh yeah, I've got a dojo. Why don't we refer business to each other? Why don't we have a joint open house, for example? Why don't we co-sponsor some events together? A lot of really great things end up happening by way of relationships. And then all that extra content that drives your social media and your content strategy only makes this all the more better. Out of every episode that I've done so far, this is the one that I would suggest you listen to multiple times and figure out how to execute. Your content strategy literally can help 10x your center. Thank you as always for coming and hanging out. Michael Tasner signing off. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I'll see you next week.